Today's episode of Pipeline Things, we take on hard spots with Jing Wang from TC Energy. It was fantastic. We covered puzzle pieces, analogies, Harry Potter,
Venn diagrams,
the Rodeo, Venn
Horcruxes.
diagram, teaching finance, and Venn diagrams to 10-year-olds.
It's fantastic.
It was a great episode.
Put the puzzle pieces together.
Absolutely a completely packed episode with information. Lots of great takeaways on hard spots. Think you'll enjoy it. Thanks for joining us. All right, welcome to today's episode of Pipeline Things. I am your host, Rhett Dotson, my co-host, Mr. Christopher De Leon. And again, we are going to have a super exciting episode. At least I am excited about today's episode. And we've got a super fun guest. It's going to be lots of announcements. But, you know, Chris, it's rodeo season right now in Houston.
It's like Christmas crawfish season, rodeo.
Christmas crawfish
it's
rodeo,
fantastic.
right? But you know what's entertaining? So we were at the rodeo last night. And I was also back in Louisiana this weekend, and
oh boy, there's
some tie-ins here. Not just crawfish is the tie-in. One of my family members is a middle school teacher, and she told me, she's like, you know, we're having this conversation. She said mullets have come back in style.
Yes.
So
they have
mullets, and she's like, my 7th graders think they invented the haircut.
Oh,
she's like, so my 7th graders come in and
have they not seen Joe Dirt?
No, they haven't seen Joe Dirt, and they never heard of Billy Ray Cyrus, which is great. And the tie is, we saw a lot of mullets at the rodeo last night.
Yeah, it's real.
Right, so mullets have come back. Have you ever thought about growing a mullet? Did you try as a kid?
No.
Did you try as an adult?
It's I feel like a mullet is almost a little bit of a culture. And
are you gonna let Leo grow a mullet?
Leo can do whatever he wants. Yeah.
Well, wait. All right. Maybe the responsible party. Will Amanda let Leo grow a mullet?
I think Amanda would as well. I think if we were to tie rodeo and mullets, you know, it almost makes me wonder a bit. Like, you know, if he's gonna wear a mullet and he's gonna be at the rodeo, it makes me think of what event he would do. Right? Would it be bronc riding? Would it be the wagon races? Would it be bull riding?
It's really funny you mentioned that. I noticed a
maybe
key body type in each of the. I don't know. I was starting to say wagon racing, but I don't know if he's big enough.
You know what? It might be wagon racing. That way, depending on how long the mullet is, it's kind of like
the wagon racing guys were some big dudes.
Yeah,
like
you got to lean on the inside when they turn.
Yeah, but I thought it'd be like a small, skinny, like a jockey, right? Smaller, better. No, clearly in wagon racing.
Well, you got to lean, brother.
I guess so.
Yeah.
So here's the tie-in for. Let me try that again. Here's the tie-in for mullets that we're going to talk about today. It's really funny that all these kids think they invented mullets. And mullets went out of fashion a long time ago, and then they have popped back up on the scene clearly.
And I always wonder, you know, we see that happen generationally, right? Where something goes out of style, then it comes back. Like, I also saw mom jeans are coming back now.
So, follow up on our last episode, I feel kind of like that's hard spots. Like, a lot of work was done on hard spots back in late 90s, early 2000s, and they were kind of in vogue. Yeah. And then we didn't hear anything about hard spots for a while. And now as an industry...
It's one of those like old new problems.
So right? Hard spots, mullets. Hard spots are the mullet pipeline integrity threat of the world?
You know, I think it depends.
My achy breaky, I was trying to think how I could go with that. I don't know if I can make that work.
Well, I can't tell you this. I guarantee you that our guest is going to help us.
So I tell you what, I'm pretty excited about the guest for a couple of reasons. When we did the hard spot episode, this is the first name that came to my mind.
Yep.
Because this particular individual is super passionate about hard spots, knowledgeable on the subject,
has experience
and likes to dig in. So I think it's time.
And wait, there's also another segue.
What's that?
To this is it's also International Women's Day.
So you're already doing it. So I would like to welcome our guest. So our guest for today's episode is Mr. Jing Wang. Mr. Jing Wang. We are going to have to refilm this. I feel like we might have to we're doing it live.
Hi, Chris.
Good to see you.
Hi, Red.
Hi, it's Ms. Jing Wang, from TC Energy. And it's super exciting because Jing is actually our first female guest on the show.
She is.
Female engineer.
Yep.
And as Chris pointed out, on the heels of International Women's Day.
Yeah.
So
this
welcome.
Couldn't be more perfect.
So I'm international because I'm from Canada.
Yeah. That's why
It works.
she's our first Canadian guest as
First
well.
Oh, yeah.
How great is that?
There are multiple firsts on this episode. I can see now Miss Producer's going to run with that as the theme. Multiple first and hard spots. I'm already giving you the title.
So they're going to think you're going to get a mullet for the first time. You know what? Can I be real with you? If you went to my barber, he would do like a really cool high taper and just leave it long in the back, and you could kind of say it's
That's called
mullet.
a rat tail. So those were called rat tails when I was a kid growing up. And I'm not more. If I come home with a rat tail or a mullet, Morgan's just going to tell me to finish the job and shave it all off. All right. So, Jake, tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself to the audience. Who are you, and who do you work for?
Oh, sure. My name is Jing Wang, and I'm working for TC Energy. I'm a manufacturing and construction thread lead. So, when people are thinking about manufacturing and construction, that's something like huge, big. You will see those dusty construction site and heavy machinery. So, what my daily job involves is actually a lot of office work. So, when we're talking about manufacturing pipeline thread, it's mainly we refer to, the thread that we created back during the manufacturing of the pipe. For example, pipe mill nominee, hot spot, and seam flaws. And construction introduced a thread such as girth wall flaws or vintage wrinkle band practice. So that's the main 5 categories I'm doing as my daily work.
You cover all of the fun ones.
Yeah, and that was such a good way to introduce it too. She goes, it's a lot of office work, working with all the threats that were introduced.
Yeah.
Like, that's so cool.
And introduced quite some time ago. Like, again, not with pipelines that were built in the 2000s, but we're talking about a lot of times pipelines built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So, again, brief disclaimer. So, Jing's not representing TC, speaking on behalf of TC or anything like that. This is friendly conversation between engineers meant to improve the knowledge in the industry and help our operator and friends out there gain awareness. So, we obviously brought you on to talk about hard spots today, which I understand you like hard spots?
I don't like them.
You don't?
You're a threat. We don't like threats.
You don't like them. You're passionate about them.
I'm passionate about them. I get paid for it.
There's some reality to that.
She is passionately paid for hard spots. But help me. What was how did you come about what was your exposure to hard spots? How did you come to the position you are now as it pertains to them?
Yeah, for sure. So that goes back to 2019. At that time, I had a great mentor, Dave Savage. He was very passionate about hot spots, and he introduced me to this world of hot spots. And it's intriguing to the fact that a hot spot actually it is not a problem. It's generally considered as stable. Something resident. We can't really do anything about it. I mean, the steel was making back in our grandfather's time. You can't really chase back and to say, hey, you know what, there are some flaws. I mean, the technology and also the quality control system at that time, it is the best it can do. Those hot spots are resident and they are in the pipeline and, they're still in service. Nothing wrong with it until it comes with hot spot cracking. When it's associated with the cracking, it increases the likelihood of introducing rupture possibility. So that becomes a threat concern, and that's what I'm dealing with every day. So my daily job regarding hotspot is actively I'm searching my entire assets, which I'm responsible to say, hey, what are the assets that is susceptible to hotspot? And I'll prioritize
Doesn't mean you have them, right? It just means you could be susceptible to them, right?
Yeah, it could be. It's a possibility. And also prioritize it based upon a lot of things. For example, whether it's near any structure where we have people living around. That's our first concern is the public safety. And the second is whether we have any other interacting features.
So it's interesting to me. So you very quickly delineated hard spots from hard spots with cracking. So at a high level, what you're trying to do is identify the hard spots. Then are you actively trying to identify hard spots that might have cracking at the same time?
Yeah. If it doesn't crack, it's less of a concern. But it cracks, I definitely concern, and there will be a lot of extensive efforts need to be done.
That seems to be a bit of a challenge to me, just to be honest. Without going into specifics, which I'm sure you can't share, like, so if somebody was approaching hard spots for the first time, an operator out there, and I want to view that, because I think a lot of our target audience you're going to have some that have familiarity similar to you, but we're going to have a lot of our audience that's not going to have familiarity with hard spots. And if they tried to go and find hard spots with cracking, that's like, you're not going to get an ILI report that says hard spot with crack. So what advice, suggestions, would you offer somebody who's going to try and start managing the threat of hard spots? How do you go about trying to find a hard spot with a crack?
That's a good question. So I have a 10-year-old daughter. I often chatted my work with her. It's just, I want to treat her as a friend. I
thought you said you were going to bring her on the field and she can find hard spots with cracks. I was like, that's amazing.
Full respect, my 10-year-old is very much engineering minded.
Okay.
So I talked to her. So she asked me, she says, Mom, what do you do? So I explained to her, and she's really particular about the hot spot. She says, well, Mom, I have a soft spot for chocolate. So what is a hot spot? I said, a hot spot is the opposite. You don't like it. But what can you do? For example, the carrots and the celery have to pack for your lunch bag.
That is so good.
So I explained to her, how do we manage a hotspot? I said, well, so first of all, this is how we do it. Forget about the resident, the hotspot being there for many, many years. They never cause any problem. They've been quiet. But focus on the ones that are likely to give you any voices or give you any trouble. For example, if this line is known to have external corrosion, is known to have SEC concerns, and then you're readily available, you have MFO data, you have EMAT data, that's the line you start with if it's a susceptible pipe. And from there, you prioritize your line. For example, for your entire assets, you have about 20 lines or 100 lines, you prioritize the first 5 or first 3, go after it.
Leverage. So you said something earlier that I really latched onto, right? So you said susceptibility, then you prioritize public safety, and then you look for things that interact. And so we're kind of honing in on the susceptibility side, right? And Rhett did a great job of saying, when someone wants to start, where do you start? And so what you're suggesting is a great way to look at it is, where do I already have ILI data?
Yeah.
Start with there.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of lower hanging fruit.
And that's in contrast. I've dealt with some operators like, hey, I just want to kick the tires, and I'm going to try a hard spot tool out on a line. I think that is one path, but your best, what I heard from you, is if you combine that path with other existing information. So don't choose just a convenient line, choose a line that you feel like you've got data you can build on.
So if I can, Jing, I really like this whole process of susceptible, prioritize, look for interaction. On the susceptibility side, you also reminded us, right? We see in regulation, I'm going to hone in on the gas side a little bit, where, basically, we're kind of, because we don't deal with fatigue as much, we're kind of in this mindset sometimes as an industry, not everybody, just generally speaking, there's a population that you could see that people are saying, it's stable. It's not a problem, it's resident. I hydro tested this back in 1960, right? And I have TVC records of a subpart J hydro test. These are stable. This is not a problem to me. What's your response to that?
Until something changes.
Okay, so talk me through that. What do you mean?
So I explained to my 10-year-old about the Venn diagram.
I'm like, the 10-year-old's coming into this now. I'm like this. Next time I go to Calgary, we're going to have to meet the 10-year-old.
Yeah, my Gianna. So I explained to her, I said, for the Venn diagram, in order for us to really concern about it and do something, we need to collect the 3 pieces. One is susceptible pipe. We can, there are different extent of what is susceptibility. For example, we can chase down to the plate sourcing. That is a little bit of above and beyond what we can do now.
A lot of operators may not be there, right?
Exactly.
Smaller operators, they may still be struggling with getting TVC records for what's in the ground, right?
Exactly.
But let's say they identify that they at least know what type of pipe it is, right? So they know the long seam type to start characterizing, its vintage.
Exactly. So there are certain pipe manufacturers, certain vintage of pipe, and certain OD of the pipe that we had past failure history. So we can start from the past failure history. If this pipe is similar to what you have, likely that is susceptible.
It's a flag.
Exactly.
Right. It doesn't mean you have them or that they're an integrity threat yet. It's just
Screening.
It's susceptible.
Yeah.
Do I have them or not? Okay,
Exactly.
we got to move.
So back to this Venn diagram. Keep going. So we got the susceptibility.
So susceptible is one circle. They haven't interacted yet.
Yeah.
All right.
And number 2 is whether you have a source of atomic hydrogen. Atomic hydrogen molecule is really, really small.
Yep.
And if you have homogeneity of the microstructure of the pipe, so that little molecule will find its way to sway, like free swim along the boundary of the grain and cause brittleness. And once that brittleness get triggered by, for example, increased operating SMICE level, gets increased operating temperature, essentially resulting higher pressure load, and then it likely to lead to a rupture.
Okay, cracking at first.
Yeah, cracking.
Yeah, first cracking.
And what's the next part? Is there a third element of the Venn diagram?
So the third element is the operating condition, is how you operate. For example, if your pipe is always being operated at 40 Fahrenheit and 900 PSI for 50 years.
Did you see how quickly she switched into U.S. customary units there? Very
international.
Impressive. Okay.
Oh, by the way.
This is so good.
By the way, I was educated in Michigan.
Oh,
Okay. So
she is checking the boxes on international. It's like, check, got it.
That's fantastic, yeah.
All right, coming back to the operational change, for example, if you have a flow reversal, the discharge becomes suction becomes discharge, you have elevated temperature, and temperature increases, your pressure increases. That could potentially increase the operating SMICE level.
Which is interesting. That's actually what they pointed to as the flow reversal in TSB. So, how did your 10-year-old take the Venn diagram? Did she get it and go?
Oh, yeah. She loves it.
So you know what I was explaining to my 12-year-old yesterday? The importance of finance.
Is this cooking again?
No, she wanted an iPhone, and she found $5 a month for 36 months from Walmart, and asked me if she could give me $5 a month. So then I had to sit down with a packet of dimes and explain finance to her. And it was like, you don't finance phones, you finance expensive things. So
it's so good.
She kind of got it after the third or fourth episode, or for third or fourth run through of me explaining. She's like, "Wait, I own the phone." No, you don't own the phone. The bank owns the phone until you buy the phone. So you're explaining Venn diagrams. I'm explaining finance. This is fabulous.
Which is a big part of integrity if you think about it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Prioritizing resources, most bang for the buck.
Yeah.
And Chris is teaching his kids how to grow a mullet. So this is actually a good place.
Them how to ride sheep.
I really like. So you started with a breakdown of the Venn diagram and susceptibility and how to target hard spots. I think operators are going to get a lot from that in our audience.
Yeah.
I actually want to take a break, and when we come back, I want to pick up on gaps in the industry, because I'm sure that there's some of those areas we know better than others, and want to hear from you on that. So we're going to take a break and hear from one of our sponsors. We'll be right back in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Kara Turner. I am the Managing Director and co-founder of ADV Marketing. We get the honor of working with Rhett and Christopher to produce this crazy podcast, and also work with them on any other initiatives that they have when it comes to marketing. And if you know them or are listening to this podcast, you know that it gets pretty crazy around here. So we have a lot of fun with them. ADV Marketing is a full-service business-to-business marketing agency. We specialize in service companies and technology companies. So if you are enjoying listening to this podcast and the fun that they're having, reach out to us and see how we can make your marketing fun.
All right, welcome back as we're talking with Jing about hard spots in the industry. So I want to pick right back up where we left off, Jing. So you did a really good job of laying out how you would approach hard spots and differentiating hard spots with cracking. So picking back up on that vein of thought, let's say you've identified a line because you've got such a rich history, you've got maybe multiple MFL runs or a single MFL run, you got geometry, you feel like you understand the condition of that line relative to our conventional threats pretty well. And you make a decision to run a hard spot tool, invest in ILI technology, and find out what you're going to get. Where does that journey go from there? What does the story look like? You get the report back. What do you do next?
All right, that's my daily job, 365, right? All right, we'll go from there.
Tell us what you do.
So once you have identified an asset you want to run the hotspot tool, my suggestion is to bundle that with your MFL, because the hotspot tool is called a dual MFL technology. So regardless if you are running hotspot or not, you need to run your regular MFL tool. So bundle that can save you cost, and also you get the most updated MFL data to analyze in conjunction with your hotspot data. And let's say you have run the tool and you have the report sitting on your desk. Before the report show up, 7 days after the run, you'll get QA/QC report. Make sure you check that QA/QC report really, really thorough to make sure that the amplitude is within the range, the speed is within the range, because my understanding for hotspot identification and detection, it's highly dependent on how you run that tool. If you run it the wrong way, you might not get the good data.
Yeah, what we like to say, staying within the essential variables of the ILI system, right?
And that's something new.
Speed,
'cause
wall thickness.
What's different about hard spots in the dual mag is you've got a high mag unit and then you've got a low mag unit on the back. And you're speaking more about staying within the limits on the low mag unit, which is a new area.
It's either low mag or residual, right?
Yeah,
depending
the
on
residual.
depending on what technology it is, right? So low mag again being where it's a calibrated MFL tool, residual where they just put sensors some distance downstream of your traditional MFLA tool.
All right, so picking up QA/QC report, got it?
Yeah. So for the report part, from our experience, we could have over hundreds of feature reported. When we say feature, it means that we don't know whether it is injurious or non-injurious.
Yeah, so they're
So it needs to be assessed. So that's called a feature or nominee.
Yeah.
You could have hundreds of them, or you could potentially only have a few of them. So how do you make a decision whether you will act on it or whether you assess it to be, deem that it's safe or not? So that's the next part is assessment, data assessment. So for hotspot data assessment, it is not for hotspot data alone. We usually in conjunction with MFO data to understand what is the external corrosion density. MFO density is a very good indicator of coating condition. And also in junction of EMAT data. Once you know where you likely have some linear indications or surface breaking or anything that EMAT features, where the EMAT features, then you can do the data overlay to say, hey, if I have an EMAT feature here, I likely will increase the concerns. And there are also a lot of other things to be considered. For example, the past dig history. So if you had direct assessment or you have any digs nearby, you can pull that data to say, hey, what is the coating condition look like? What is the environment, the soil look like? Whether I have, alkalinity or I have salinity of the soil, whether the pH is less than 6, something like that.
This is sounding very similar to SCC. Susceptibility.
Similar.
Very similar.
Yeah, just a lot of, it is a holistic review of the data. And once you have considered every angle of your data and then also consider about the access, because you want to be friendly to your construction crew, make sure they can get there.
So is there a way, you mentioned a couple of things that I think are interesting, right? So you said, density of MFL. So let's get practical. So if you have a section of pipe within a string of pipe within a peggable segment that has a higher density of metal loss calls, you're thinking you're going to hone in there to see if there's also hard spots.
Yeah.
But it's not because there's hard spots, right? But rather I think you're now jumping to the point of hard spot interacting with something else.
It's the atomic hydrogen source.
Which is where the coding comes in for the CP.
Exactly.
Because the CP is breaking down.
So the higher CP, the more likely you are to hydrate.
Yeah, where you have corrosion features, the CP is going to work extra harder. And also from our corrosion, basics, we know that during the corrosion process, it produced atomic hydrogen. So that's where the atomic hydrogen sourcing come from.
Now, the other thing that was really interesting to me was you mentioned the EMAT features. I want to ask it, and if you can answer it, hopefully you can. Are you actually looking for an EMAT feature that would interact with a hard spot, or just an increased prevalence of EMAT features in a region? So maybe if you saw an EMAT feature nearby in the same joint, that's how so you're using it, like more proximity. You're not actually trying to say, and I want to make sure the audience heard that, you're not trying to say, I'm looking for a hard spot feature coincident with a crack.
Nah,
Gotcha.
it's more on the joint or neighboring.
So that may happen, right?
That may happen, but that
it's
would
more-
be crisis.
yeah,
I mean, in my opinion, that would be.
Yeah, that's
that-
an immediate.
Yeah, that's an immediate. That's a red button.
But again, I think what we're saying here is it really ties again back to susceptibility, right? It's you're screening the line with the data you have.
Yep.
And wherever you have an increased prevalence of a series of things that tell a story.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
Poor coating means likely corrosion, which means the CP is concentrating there,
Yep.
therefore atomic hydrogen, therefore
Yep.
more likely that a hard spot can be, use the word trigger earlier. Right?
Exactly.
Can be triggered, it becomes more brittle, change in operations,
Yeah,
potential incident.
right to the point.
It sounds like you're trying to find them before they find you.
Chasing game. I'm on the lead. All right. So once
Jing, the hard spot hunter. That's what we're
the bulldog.
the hard spot bulldog. I don't know the
That's
hard.
so good.
All right. So once you have selected a location for excavation, next part is that you want to make sure the field NDE is done right. For example, the hotspot location accuracy, I mean, any tool has its location accuracy. So if you are just pinpoint yourself to a 12-inch, up and down, it might not work. So what I would suggest is, if you have located a GPS coordinates of that hotspot feature, open a 10-foot joint, 10-foot length. And then what we have been successful is using a tool called a spine tool. So spine tool intended to find any surface inhomogeneity. So for example, if you have a corrosion, you have surface breaking, have cracks, have microstructure change, spine tool will be able to find it. And once you do, it's a screening tool. It's kind of like laser scan.
And this is
scanning.
I want to make sure this is an OD tool,
Yeah.
outside diameter. So you're
Outside.
scanning with the spine tool,
Yeah.
and that's SPYNE for the people that are out there. And you're looking for surface inhomogeneities on the outside surface.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, once you do your scan, you find the potential areas that you are interested, and then you go, you do your nitro wash, you grade it, and you polish it, and then you measure that hardness. So, sometimes it takes a bit of redundancy effort to measure that again and again, because sometimes the hotspot is really small. We have identified like a raindrop hotspot. It's so easy to get missed. So if you haven't find it from the first round, refine your grids.
Do you need to find those?
Yeah,
You need to find those? The little bitty guys?
yeah, yeah.
And so it's interesting that is in like the actual hard spot definition from REN 2
Was
was
2 inches.
2 inches
Yeah.
as a minimum size.
Well, again, so let's say if it's not 2 inches, but we're there.
Yeah.
We might as well just find the tiny little guys, and
Yeah.
at least we can validate the tool.
Gotcha.
The tool might
The
not be that
capabilities.
accurate. And also, for tool to call a hotspot, I mean, the transition from base metal to elevated hardness, it takes a bit of time, right?
Yeah.
So we got to give a little forgiveness there.
So,
So we were talking, I want to jump in. So we were talking about the ILI tool, right? So we have this, in this particular case, it is an MFL-based technology, some kind of dual MFL technology.
Yep.
Whether it's calibrated low field with a high or high with a trailing sensor. I want to, the whole reason why we got here was because REN 2, the new gas rule, AEIE, the mega rule, defined hard spots, right?
Yep,
And they said it's
327
Brenell.
Brenell, any direction more than 2 inches.
tie that back to ILI, right? So are we saying that your reporting threshold then, if you get an ILI report, is 327 Brenell? Or talk to me about how the characterizing the hard spot relates back to the MFL and its capabilities broadly.
Yeah, that's a good one. So reporting wise, we're not looking for 327 or 300, but now what we asked is any elevated hardness area that is deviated from the base metal for more than 50 Brenell. For example, if the base metal is 120, report me anything over 170. If the base metal is 150, report me anything over 200 Brenell. And we don't care about the size. Doesn't matter if it's big or small.
So that's a little bit different, right, from your traditional ILI mentality.
Yeah.
Right? Because what we're accustomed to as an industry is it's find me stuff this deep and this long, because then I can do a burst pressure calculation or estimate it and then rank. I can rank them accordingly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Here we're saying it's a little bit different. Here you're saying this is a relative reporting, right? It's
Yeah.
if there is a delta of greater than 50 burnout, I want to know about it.
Yeah, it's a deviation from
So,
the
but that
baseline.
also doesn't mean that's a problem yet, though, right?
No, it's just the first screening to identify a pool of features
Yeah.
that we will potentially be interested in and apply our engineering assessment.
Yeah, because it's not. Talk to us a little bit about your experience with elevated hardness, right? Because there's got to be a range. If it's elevated, but it's no risk, elevated maybe risk, elevated high risk.
Yeah. So it's an International Women's Day, so I'm gonna throw our skincare over there as the analogy.
Well, this is so good.
I have no idea where this is going. I'm all in now.
I do have spots. I know in the market there are like a $1,000 kind of serum that is supposed to remove the dark spot from your face.
Okay.
I haven't tried it and I couldn't afford it, but I can use that as an analogy
Okay,
there. So
I'm
if
like where
we
this
are
is going.
thinking hot spots are just like the dark spots on the face, right?
Okay.
Well, you're still beautiful, regardless you have spots or not.
Yeah.
So pipe could potentially be totally fine. It doesn't and not impact its serviceability.
Because it's stable.
It's a pressure containing capability. Yes, it's not pretty. So what?
So it has pressure. That
But
is
you
such
said it's
a,
still beautiful.
Yeah.
I want to go back. The pipe is still beautiful.
yeah. So it could be it could be 70 years old
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
with hard spots.
Yeah.
And it's still pressure containing.
Yeah.
And as long as it's not interacting with other either environmental factors
Yeah.
or defects, then it's still pretty. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's just like you need to have a key to activate that cracking mechanism.
Yeah.
Unless you collect, like Harry Potter, you need to collect certain jewels and.
Jing is on the analogies. We've got kids, Harry Potter, facial spots. Like, we are going with it.
This is
Yeah.
so good. So,
wait, go back to Harry Potter. Wait, what is
Yeah.
like Harry Potter?
Harry Potter, you gotta collect all those jewelries in
Yeah.
order to get
Yeah.
that key,
To get
and then
rid
you
of
open that
Voldemort.
magic
Yeah.
key. Here's a brand new world, right?
the whole crux is right.
Exactly. So hotspot cracking to me, why I'm so passionate about it, is just like a treasure hunt.
Yeah, you got to find them.
Yeah, I gotta find them. So
Yeah.
There's another
can
potential title
ensure
for you, Mr.
public
Producer.
safety.
Hard spots
So-
in the treasure hunt.
So I still want to get to something a little bit tangible. I
Yeah.
think we're really hovering, and we're trying to find this stuff, right? So you're kind of looking at your crystal ball, or you're looking at the lay of the land. But talk to us a little bit about, in your opinion, at what point do you become concerned about the hardness of a hard spot? Or are you saying you're not?
Yeah,
until it
is
interacts
it a
with
primary,
something?
like, so when you look at that feature listing, do you rely more on the data integration? Or do you just start, nope, if the vendor reports it as over 327, I take action, and if they don't, I don't take action?
So there are two elements to it. For the folks that you have a special permit, if you have a hard prescribed language to tell you that you have EFW pipe, you have hardness over 327 Brno, and in any other direction it's over 2 inches, then you need to act according to that language. If it's not, if it's in a gray area that you need to debate according to your internal procedure or your SME review, and then there are those six factors I would suggest you to consider. So first is look at your pipe, and potentially look at particularly focused on the vintage of the pipe. And if you read Kiefner's North America line pipe history, you would possibly chase down to the plate sourcing to say what is likely to be the plate manufacturer.
Yeah.
And from there, you can, whether you can, de-alarm or, increase the alarm level of the sustainability. And two, take a look at your operating condition.
Yeah.
Have you had a recent flow reversal? Have you had any temperature or pressure increase? What is the operating stress level you are at now? And the third is your CP. When I'm talking about CP, not just your on and off ratio, not just your CIS survey data, but also dwell into whether you have any recent installation of ground beds or rectifiers. Because once you have those new animals that contributing send spikes of current to your system, that could potentially lead to a concern.
Yeah, and one of the first things that came to mind is and this is why it's important to have threat leads, right? People who can focus on specific threats across your asset base.
That's my daily job.
So you have the time and the energy and the passion to invest not just on an ILI tool and hope that the ILI tool can do your job for you, but for it to just be a data set that you can then integrate and begin to manage the integrity of your pipeline for this threat.
You're absolutely right too. So the number fourth factor is the coding. So coding, you can find it from two different ways.
Yep.
One is, indicator, as we mentioned, MFO density.
Yeah.
If you have increased or higher density, if you see a sudden change of your external corrosion density, well, that tells you something,
Yeah.
that your coating is degraded. And two, you can find it from your past excavations.
Yeah.
What exactly is the coating?
Yeah.
Whether that coating is in good contact with your pipe. And also you can find the soil conductivity,
Yeah.
resistivity, what's your moisture level, all that.
So again,
And sometimes the pH.
It's not as simple as just jumping on the hardness values,
Yeah.
unless you're within a special permit line. Otherwise, the process that operators should be looking to follow is one of data integration and trying to
So
understand
if
all
we
those
had
variables.
effects, it's effect. It's if you get an MFL-based hard spot report, you're not necessarily going to dig it, right? It's a data set for you to integrate to then continue your plan on trying to find out, do I have an issue?
And you don't need to dig
and where.
Exactly.
Right, which is very different. I mean, that's a behavioral difference in how we use ILI technology, right? We're used to running an ILI technology and
Getting the features you need to
highlighting a
respond to.
specific feature
Yep.
and say, go dig this.
Yep. So in the last couple of minutes we have, and I want to drive us home. And you've been a great guest, provided lots of valuable information. I'll let you pick. Where do we need to head as an industry on hard spots? Would you give me your top, maybe 2, 3 at most? Where do you think we need to focus our efforts to improve or address hard spots?
Your opinion.
Yeah. So currently, I'm leading 2 projects with the PRCI Pipeline Research Council International. So our focus, we have 2 focuses. One is to find why certain hotspot crack. That's the susceptibility of hotspot cracking. It's different from hotspot susceptibility. As we mentioned, you have a hotspot. So
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Well, our
You're still beautiful.
Our generation, like generation of grandfather, they have that, and we gotta live with it.
Yeah.
Right. So what? But we're gonna have to prevent hotspot from cracking.
Yeah.
And so that's the focus number 1. And focus number 2 is the state-of-the-art tool. I mean the dual MFO tool. It is still in an advancing stage. So we gotta help improve that tool regarding its POI, POD, location accuracy, sizing accuracy.
But these have been out for a while. I mean, they've been running hard spot inspections since early 2000s?
Yeah.
And so you're saying that there is an ongoing project or starting a project to really define and improve the state of the art for hard spot technology.
Yeah, that's actually one of the suggestions from the NTSB report to PHMSA that.
Which,
You're right.
but it kind of makes sense, right? Because again, you'll have indications, but when you start honing in on what an MFL does, right? It's this, the signal characteristics will change. The reason why we use high mag levels is because you want to saturate the pipe so that it focuses on flux leakage.
Yep.
However, when you're looking at material changes, you're looking at lower
Residual.
Yeah, because what your residuals or calibrated low fields is because you're trying to hone in on the microstructure influence on magnetic fields, the permeability, the magnetic permeability, and now it's a little bit vaguer.
Yeah.
Right? You're not just looking for amplitudes, you're looking at system response to a material. And now what if it's not as hard in this plate or the size is smaller? So it's actually kind of complex, right? Complex doesn't mean bad, it just means we need to better understand it, which makes sense.
We have possibility of improvement.
Yeah.
So those 2 efforts are interesting because both of those are PRCI efforts. What information would you recommend maybe somebody who's not a PRCI member, which can be challenging to get involved in that if you're not a PRCI member? What information's out there maybe for people who aren't PRCI members?
Yeah, there are 2 publications I can recommend for fun read. One is Kiefner's book regarding North American history of line pipe.
That's the red book, the
Yeah.
red ASME book. If you don't have the red ASME book as either an operator or a consultant, you should have that book.
Yeah, it's a good book to start with. And regarding eyeline tool, I will recommend a paper published from last year's IPC. It's called Know Your Enemy, Improvement in Managing the let me take a look at my notes.
The
Managing the
Thread of
Thread of Hotspots
Yeah.
by Rosen.
That was, by Contran and Simon Slater. It was a good
Yeah,
paper.
And also, we are looking at updating the effort Inga started back in 2005. It's the integrity characteristics of vintage pipeline. As we said, hotspot is a vintage problem.
Wow. All right, so some good information out there. So, Jing, I want to say thanks for joining us on the show today. Do you have any parting thoughts you'd like to leave with the audience?
The last analogy, I'm really good at it.
Oh,
The last
pieces.
analogy. Here we go.
I think that's it. I think
The title is Analogies. Analogies with Jing.
It's the last analogy with Jing.
All right. I love playing puzzles. I have
Okay.
loads of puzzles at home. So for hotspot, I would say it's a very babyish puzzle. We don't need to go, 5,000 pieces or 1,000 pieces. It's only
They're 2x2 squares.
10 or 20 pieces. So take a look at it from a holistic approach. You need to collect all the puzzle pieces together to have a picture. Don't just narrow to just one particular piece and says, you know what? Let me focus on that 327 Brino. Guarantee you that's not working. Because in order, remember that Venn diagram, you need to have a
need to have the other
sustainability,
pieces.
atomic hydrogen, and also environment contribution.
Yeah, it's such a good analogy too, right? Because again, by the 2" by 2" with the puzzle pieces, it's a bigger piece. While you could try to find the little crack with an ILI in a hard spot, those are little pieces. The guidance is find the big pieces, put them together. God, that's so good.
Look
I
at the
have
cover
an idea of my side job. I'm gonna print puzzle pieces with you have that mohawk here.
With the mullet. You know what?
So hey, you know what? We got you.
Speaking of that.
We got a gift for our guest host. It's not a puzzle,
It's not.
but you will find it useful. This is how we're going to close out the episode. You're going to come on.
As a first-time guest and an international guest, we wanted to give you something. What the way I would say is something very H-Town.
Oh.
And we have the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo that's ongoing, so we wanted to give you a small token so you could take it back and remember us. I know Calgary has the Stampede, but it's still second best to Houston Livestock Show and
Okay.
Rodeo.
I hope I'm not getting the $1,000 piece of spot remover.
So we give you the small gift if you don't mind. Go on ahead and
Yeah, she's
and
open it live.
Wow. All right. Does the color match with my dress today?
Yeah.
Oh!
This is so good.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks, Rhett. I like it.
Oh, well, you may get a chance to wear it tonight. So I want to thank Jing for coming to join us on the show. We hope you enjoyed today's edition of Pipeline Things, and we look forward. Upcoming, this is the end of our season 1 arc. Our next arc you can look forward to will be covering ILI technology with all of our vendors at PPIM. Think you're going to love it. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again.